That's workable. Just barely. It's a small boat. It's a 30-foot boat. The alternative is to kill saloon space. Speaking of new home for batteries, leads us to speaking about the fuel tanks. Now, these fuel tanks are a known problem. I was going to try to open the drains and see what comes out today, but I've decided I'm going to wait. I'm going to get myself a borescope, which, if you don't know, is basically a flexible wand with a little camera and a little light in it that you can stick into things like fuel tanks to get a look at what's going on inside them. I'm going to need that for other stuff on this boat. But chances are good that one way or another, these tanks are going to have to come out and probably be disposed of. And the more I think about it, the more I'd like to get rid of them anyway. And here's why. I can replace these two. There's one on either side. I won't bother swinging you over there. That based on my measurements so far, there's an off-the-shelf molar plastic tank that will hold 13 gallons that will work in there. I probably will have to remove the cockpit tub to get these out and get new ones in, but I can replace that with something off the shelf that'll hold 13 gallons, right? So that's a total of 26. The center tank would go away, and in that space, I would create a platform for the new batteries for, I don't know, a couple of 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphates and at least 100 amp hour, possibly new AGM battery just for starting the engine. Now I have a rough idea of the miles per gallon, nautical miles per gallon I can get out of this engine, only based on 4 hours of motoring, but I think that gave me a pretty good picture. At about 60% RPM, I used about just shy of a gallon after 4 hours from startup to shutdown. Very little idling, although I did go in circles a few times, but that was almost at full throttle. Average for the trip was about a gallon for 4 hours, or a quart, maybe a liter per hour. The boat speed, according to GPS, but in relatively calm water, no current in Barnegat Bay. There's really not much tidal current. There certainly wasn't at that time. Very little wind. We were seeing 4 knots through the water. This boat doesn't have a hull-mounted speedometer. I don't know if it ever did, and it probably never will. I don't really care about that so much. I care about my speed over the map. And we were seeing 4 knots at about that power setting. So 4 knots. What did I say, 4 gallons an hour? Oh, no, 1 gallon an hour. We'll call it 0.2 gallons per hour. So in 1 hour, we can go 4 miles with 0.2 gallons, or we'll call it a quarter of a gallon. Let's be fair. So that means for each gallon, we can get 16 nautical miles. Now, I understand in real world motoring, probably going to be different. Depends on circumstances, doesn't it? Depends on conditions, and etc., and power setting. If I'm motor sailing, I could do a lot better. If I'm slogging through heavy seas for hours and hours, it could be a lot worse. So let's be conservative. Let's call it 15 nautical miles, or per gallon. 15 miles per gallon, right? If I have a total of only 26 gallons aboard, and I can get 15 miles to the gallon, that means my range, based on that figure, which is a guesstimate, would be almost 400 nautical miles. That should be sufficient for most needs. I know some people, they won't cross an ocean unless they have enough fuel to motor at least halfway across. I understand that, but at 4 knots in this boat, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to think about that. But I think 400 miles. Right now, the tankage is set up. I believe the total, that center tank holds about 20 gallons. I think it's a total of 45, which would yield a lot more range. But do I need that much range? The fuel would most of the time be sitting in there a long time, which I think is part of the reason why all these tanks are fouled. I think that probably invites diesel bugs, microbial growth, and everything else, every other problem you can have with diesel fuel that's sitting basically in tankage. I don't know why the boat was set up that way. I doubt it originally. Well, I don't know. I would just be guessing about what it had originally. But I think that would work for me. Off-the-shelf tanks, I don't have to think about having them custom made. I certainly wouldn't dream of trying to make them myself. My welding skills are poor. Yeah, I'm no good at welding. I could learn to get better. I know people have actually made diesel tanks out of GRP, but I don't think I want to go there. The idea of getting a tank, a pre-made plastic tank for $300 or $400. I think they list for just under 400 a piece. That has a lot of appeal for me. But the job of getting these old guys out, I don't know. I mean, if someone came here and told me tomorrow that I just have to flush these and I could keep using them, I probably would throw out my crazy scheme of moving the batteries back there and all that stuff. I might still be able to put batteries in this engine bay. But I know the guy who sold this boat to me, he had it looked at, the tanks looked at, and that diesel mechanic told him to stop buying filters because his tanks were boned and they couldn't be cleaned. Exactly what the details of that were, I do not know. So I'm going to get a borescope, have another look. I'd love to know what these tanks are made out of. I don't think they're made out of Monel, but if they are, I'm definitely going to take them out and sell them. They're worth more than my boat, probably, if they're Monel. Monel's so expensive now, and it's like the super metal. But it will get fouled, just like anything else. Yeah, another advantage of having two tanks. Originally, this was set up, if you lift these covers in the bottom of the footwell, under the teak grate at the bottom of the footwell, there's another filler. So you had three fillers, three tanks, but they weren't set up to be independent. I think they were all just sort of teed together. A lot of that was undone when I bought the boat. But one advantage of having just two is I already have deck fill points for them that I can make work, I think, with the molar tanks. I could have a manifold below deck so that I could run them together to feed the engine, or isolate one if need be. If one of them gets contaminated or has a leak or something, I can isolate them, but it won't be quite as complicated as having three tanks. I really could use the space under this cockpit footwell. Yeah, I could really use that space for the batteries, maybe for tools and spares and stuff. There's more than enough room for the batteries. Look at the condensation. My God. Anyway, I mean, other than the fuel, I gotta replace. I gotta open these. I gotta drain these, replace the filters. I got the makings of a good system. I got two rate cores, which is what you normally would want. The vents are great. The vents go out. The vents go out here. Those little brass things you see on the outside. You can see the elbows for them. But it's all pretty Mickey Mousey. I mean, that's not, look at that cock. We got a vent and a back, and the overflow from the engine fitting there. I mean, it's okay, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're fouled. That's probably condensation in that corner. I don't think it's leaking. But I'm not gonna, I was gonna dig further into that today. I don't think I'm going to. It's not that important right now. I wish I could just magically make them go away and start over, but unfortunately I think I'm going to have to remove this whole thing, which is going to be a springtime thing. I need a couple of good dry days. I will have to wind up covering the boat. It's going to take more than one day, that's for damn sure. I really, really don't want to do it, but I don't think they'll come out like this, that one, they're, I don't remember the measurement, but the length of that tank exceeds the amount of space here to get it out. So I think they were put in with the footwell out. that one to that. I was measuring when I first got the boat. I figured if I disconnected all this plumbing, I might be able to slide it out and hump it up over the engine. But you know what? The more I think about that, the more I think it's not going to happen. And I'd sooner pull this out probably than unmount the engine. Although, at one point, I do have to replace, I don't know if I have to, but I really want to replace that coupling. And also replace this with a regular stuffing box. This is a PSS dripless seal. And it doesn't drip, but if it ever does leak, the boat will sink before I can do anything about it. Because to replace this, unless, you know, if that bellows gets a little crack, you can jerry-rig something on it temporarily, but if the seal itself goes, you have to pull the shaft to replace it. And while you're doing that, mucho water will get in the boat. Whereas if your stuffing box stuffing gets a little worn out, you can just crack the nut, a little water gets in the boat, and you put more stuffing in and tighten it down again. Bob's your uncle. This is an R&D coupling, I think. I actually found the unit online. Haven't ordered it yet, but I think it'll be worth just replacing it. I don't think it comes with that thing. That's the worst business. That's all superficial corrosion, but it isn't getting any better, is it? No, I don't know why it's so corroded either. But anyway, even that, though, doesn't involve removing the engine. So it can all be done, sort of. This looks roomy, but it's not. Anyway, the point I forgot to just make was that too could much more easily be done with the cockpit footwell out of the boat. Instead of having to drape myself over the engine or whatever I would have to do. It'd be a nightmare. I'd probably have to go in on that side like I did before. Whew, it's a lot tighter than it looks in there. This is better than many boats, but it's not. This is better than many boats, but it's not great. Most people don't know that I'm fully trained in CAD. I have a master's degree in cardboard aided design. This is an approximate facsimile of an Airhead brand composting toilet, which is what I really want for the boat. What I'm going to do right now is try to figure out where it's going to be, what angle it's going to be, how that's going to affect my plans to have a shower in this head. But this is how big it is, this is the shape roughly, and this is how tall it is. It's 20 inches tall. Let's see. Now the bucket was aligned like this. The bucket was not 20 inches tall. This gets it clear of the door, but the problem is I can't really sit on it, and of course the light isn't going to work. That's a little better. Anyway, if it's here, if I get it high enough so it's clear of the door, I can't sit on this. There's no room. If it's all the way down here, that's better, but it blocks the door considerably. And it's still a bit of a bear. If I were to... In case you didn't know, as far as I know, well, this is pretty good. Even gentlemen sit down to pee on boats. It's just, unless you have a really luxurious kind of head. This wouldn't be too bad for me, and I could still have a cabinet like the one on the other side that starts about here, but no, it really invades the entry space. If I have it fore and aft, which is better for safety, it has to be higher or it's really going to be in there. This would be the easiest and simplest place to put it, but be kind of in the way in general, trying to get stuff in and out of the forepeak storage area. If I want to actually be able to have some kind of shower set up in here, it'd really be in the way. One nice thing is I could step on it going in and out of the hatch, which I don't know if would be so good for it. I have it out here a little bit, up a little bit higher. I gotta put something under there. Yeah, here you can't see it because there's nowhere to put the camera. Walking in and out of here isn't so bad. I can still have my cabinet there. And sitting on this, let's see, that handle's useless now. I'd have to move it over to the other side. So I got this one for the left hand. That's workable. Just barely. It's a small boat. It's a 30-foot boat. The alternative is to kill saloon space. Allegedly, the head was out here. There was sort of a wall. There was a cabinet here, and that makes a lot of sense. But it would kill this nice extra long bunk up here. I'd have to cut into that or something. I really don't want to do that. And this cabinet is useful. They got a drawer on top and a nice storage cubby underneath. I don't think I want to do that. It's tight enough in here as it is, and that would be a very claustrophobic head. Although I could get it, there would be a lot more leg room. Well, I don't know. I think this is going to work. What I want to do is recreate, oh man, not exactly, a cabinet about the same dimensions as this. That will be a wet locker. That will be on this side, starting about where this rib is and extending up. Probably with a door in it, probably faced with cedar. I might be able to use enough of what I took off to face it. And we'll have a solid face here. That'll be a wet locker for foul weather gear primarily. And boots, hats, jackets, bib overalls, all that jazz. The one on the starboard side will be a dry locker for my normal clothes, etc. I thought originally about not having a cabinet here, having a big wide open, wet sort of deck gear area for ropes, sails, fallies, all that stuff. But it kind of makes sense to keep the wearable stuff separate. There will be a shower sump below, and I have to change things a little bit so that stuff will drain more into that than into the bilge, although it's not the end of the world if it goes into the bilge. For showering, I have to have something here. That teat grate will go back. I'm thinking about a sheet of plastic or even rubber that will live under the teat grate, basically, which I'm going to have to shim up on the aft side so there's a little space between it and whatever I'm going to use to collect the water. That will have a nipple integrated in it, a drain nipple, which will go into the smallest shower sump box I can get, which will have its own built-in pump. That will be plumbed to a through hole that will go somewhere around there above the water line. I have a through hole in back that isn't being used. I think I showed that earlier in the engine room. I might move that guy, plug the hole back there and move it up here. That would be the simplest, easiest solution. The diameter of that hole is a little small for a shower sump, but I think it'll be fine. As for the air head ventilation, on this side, there will be a flexible hose. You can do it with rigid hose, but I'm going to set it up with a flexible hose that will go through the bottom of the cabinet and come up and probably head outboard right away and be strapped. It'll be hanging from these. There will be an elbow, and I'm going to put it there. That's where that cowl vent is right now. I'm probably going to put a, what is it, Vetus, I think makes it, the little stainless steel flying saucer, low profile thing. You can step on it without hurting it, and it can be dogged from the inside, although the airhead, I'd have to disconnect the hose, but that'd be easy enough to have a quick disconnect if need be. They basically designed it to be used with some kind of 12-volt fan or a solar powered vent, but I'm going to try a passive one to begin with. I don't want to deal with no powered vent. I've heard the solar ones are noisy. So yeah, I think this is going to have to be where it lives. I don't have much choice. If I have it here, I can actually stand up to pee in it. Although that's not really the best way to use the airhead because of the way it's designed. I won't get into that here. And of course, if the boat's moving around, you're better off sitting down. I think it'll be okay. I can probably use the plywood that used to support the bucket, parts of it anyway, to make a new sort of platform for it there. And okay, that's sorted. I guess I should take some measurements to determine how long a flexible hose I'm going to need. And also I got to take a measurement to determine how much hose I need for my shower sump through hull. shower sump discharge. And I'll probably take some measurements of the existing cabinet, etc. I'm not ready to start building that yet. I think I was complaining about money earlier. Good marine plywood is not cheap. And besides, this is more urgent. Today, before I go, if I do nothing else, I've got to get rid of all the rotten wood here. All of it. Oh, man. That's a little spongy there. Yeah, and maybe make a cardboard profile to start looking into the idea of doing a laminated sister. Well, I didn't mention earlier that one reason I can't really steam and bend a piece is I'd have to remove the deck. The way these go in, especially in a repair, is you have to drive it down from the deck. I can't do that. And there's not much point in steaming it if you're going to do it in 2 pieces or 3. So I'm going to try to make a laminated rib. Maybe with a sister alongside it, just to double up the strength. Although a laminated one, if it's done correctly, it should be just as strong as this, if not stronger, to be honest. The only reason it's not done is because it's just a lot more work.